goes. Are you still there, Jimmy? Yeah, my plug was not, for my microphone was not plugged in. Just saw that. You can see the audio was not moving over there. Should be working now. I don't know why it would have turned off, but should be working okay. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on here. So we got a super tough horse and we got a lanky old horse. Oh, good. Yeah, so the glanced over, saw your comment. I'm like, oh, did I something going on with the audio? Well, I just tell your work, you've got better things to do with your time, right? I'm sure they'll appreciate that. I try to tell my students that all the time, and they just don't seem to think that that's accurate. Let's see, over there. So, well, yeah. So that's kind of what I do. I thought I'd come. I used to kind of live stream morning studies stuff, and so I thought I would try out that again. Just kind of add that to the repertoire. And yeah, it's pretty early, so helps keep me awake and focused. Especially during the holidays, we have a whole week off for Thanksgiving at the university I teach at, so that's it's good to have projects to work on. Morning, everybody popping in. And of course, there's usually a different audience in the morning for me. So I'm in the East Coast, United States, so that usually means people in Europe are in the middle of their day. Asians are finishing up their day. No, you couldn't drop any text messages? I don't know. That's weird. 11:49 lunchtime. I was at the Canary Island. So, and then I always like to kind of mix what I'm learning up, so I'm not just, studying the creature design, but maybe working on the rendering. So I've been practicing a lot with this Hunt 102 quill, among other pen quills, but kind of working on my inking skills. So I rough in the drawings to kind of get them to a certain point, and then switch over to the nib here, or a brush, or whatever I want to work with that day. So hello, Mr. Dr. Southern. So yeah, kind of going through different art books. So if you were to go, I had a setup downstairs. So I'm in a little townhouse. That's an easy walk to my classrooms, and classroom. So we'll have a new classroom in this spring. Should be nice. Teach something different for once. But they teach something different at this university. I've taught a lot of things, but kind of got the upstairs, which probably would be the master bedroom. It's pretty small, but for the little place it is, it's the largest of the bedrooms, and we got it set up for my illustration studio. So I've got my big art table here. I've heard of Marshall Vandroff, of course. I think he's really well known for his figure drawing stuff, especially. I'm not familiar with his animal drawing stuff, but I'm sure it's good. I've got a few books. They're all downstairs that I really like, that I could grab a little bit later. Maybe once I get through this page, I can grab them and flip through them. But yeah, but there's kind of a basic methodology to all of them, really. But what's nice about the Terryl Whitlatch one is she does go into the actual anatomy. So most of the books, I think, is what you really need most of the time. It goes into the structure. So like the underlying armature, which is similar to the skeleton, and but there's a handful of kind of classic books, or even there's if you can find the PDFs for the famous artist course, they have a whole chapter on animal drawing. That's the magic of the Hunt 102, right? If you can get some really fine lines. If you're trying to draw sideways, you get really sharp ones. If you draw it backwards by accident, you can splatter. But I'm sure Marshall Vandroff's an incredible instructor. Like he's highly regarded. Doesn't he do stuff with Stan Prokopenko? Yeah, for those just on the Instagram side, I'm live streaming over on YouTube. But you might get a somewhat better view over the top. Or maybe not, I'm not sure. But it's kind of a multi-chat thing going on over there. but Marshall Vandross, I'm sure, is a great source for just about anything. Actually, one of my former students just did a Proco course, a Stan Prokopenko course. Josh Black, who's one of my very earliest students. I don't remember what year he took it. It was before I went to grad school, so somewhere in that 2004 to 2008 time period when I first started teaching. And okay, yeah, I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I teach at Virginia Commonwealth University. So, seems like a good place so far. I've been here for a little over a year. And having a good time so far, I think. Yeah, so that's where I'm in, kind of East Coast. Yeah, it's a couple hours drive to the East Coast, technically speaking, but and then people often comment on the stream like, "How do you work in silence?" And I'm like, "Well, I have headphones on, so it's not actually silent, but it can be a good idea to work without any noise too. Focus your attention a little better that way." Mm-hmm. I got it all, set up. I was so one of the interesting things about the job I have is it may be the only kind of professorship like it in the United States, maybe in the world. It's a concept art full-time professor tenure track it's also what they call a research position. So it just means that I don't teach as much as other professors do, and but as part of that, they expect me to kind of do more professional or research type activity. So in my case, that could mean more professional work, publications and etc. So partially, doing I think live streams would help with that. Just need to become internet famous somehow, right? Yeah, one of my kind of productivity things I like to do is kind of get started very early in the morning on something specific, and so that's why one of the reasons I like these morning study activities is it gets me to look at something that looks great, which is always inspiring, and then also kind of gives me something very specific to do in the morning. So I'm not sitting around the studio wondering what I should do next. I know exactly what I'm going to do, and that makes a big difference for productivity. And I've got everything kind of, usually I try to have things set up too before I even go to bed. So I'll set up the book and put down the sketchbook. So all I have to do is get up first thing in the morning, and everything is ready to roll. Which kind of once you kind of get going in the studio, there's not a lot really to stop you. And then the other little productivity tip that I like to give people is to stop when you know exactly what you're going to do next. So basically, if I'm working on like an actual finished piece for myself or others or whatever, if I've got a schedule, I like to kind of stop when I know exactly what the next thing is going to be, rather than just kind of keep going till I run out of things. And that means that basically when I sit down to work the next time, I know exactly what I want to do, and I can pick up from that point exactly and move forward. And also because some time has passed, I'll spot some things that I want to do too that are new, but to make sure that I've got something very specific to do when I sit down to work the next time, rather than hoping I'll figure out something, which is often kind of the key for preventing things like there's people always complaining about art block, right? You'll see people talk about that online all the time, and I think art block is usually, not always, but usually a case of not having done stuff for a while. Because the best inspiration for doing any work is just to do the work. And the work that you do will suggest other work that you could do. And in fact, that becomes the problem is as you're working, I appreciate that Geronimo Bizarro. So when you're, but basically the artwork, it suggests new things to do. And so if you aren't producing anything, if you're waiting for that inspiration to strike, it probably won't. But if you just sit down and start working, drawing in your sketchbook, drawing things that you think look nice, even if it's not your own, like, my little morning studies here, I've generally found that if I have something very specific like that to work on, then it's going to give me ideas while I'm working. And then the problem you run into in that situation is you've got so many things that you could do, but you don't have time for all of them. So the greater challenge becomes prioritizing what you want to do with your time, what's going to be of most value. Yeah, but the only time I've ever had anything remotely related to any kind of art block is when I haven't been productive. And as soon as I am outside drawing with my sketchbook or at a figure drawing class, drawing people or studies from masters like these, new things pop up and, right away for myself. and just start executing on them, and away you go. But I think it, you can see that derived from an approach from what's her face, Annie Dillard. She's an author, and she likes to make a point. She has a little book. She calls it an embarrassing little book called The Writer's Life, and it's a small book about kind of the struggles of her being a writer or an artist in general. Like, she comments in there that a writer needs a conference table. That's because that's how she lays out her books, is on a conference table. So she has all the topics and chapters and things all kind of laid out on a big giant table. But she makes a point in that book about giving it all and giving it now. And because she says, as you give out what you've got, in terms of your art, or in her case the writing, is that you'll get more, and you just kind of keep filling that well by emptying it out. And I've definitely found that to always be true. And of course, I always like learning new things too. So I've got, got some ink on there that I need to clean up. So that always suggests new things as well. When you learn new skills or new programs or new media, that's going to make its own new sets of possibilities, because doing new things exposes you to new areas, and which again opens up new avenues for creative exploration. So I've been working on this larger portfolio project as a world building project. And I kind of had some parameters I set for it based off of some sketches I did, I guess, a couple years ago now. Well, thanks for that follow there, Gile Polizak. As I've been working on it, I've also been thinking up stories for it, and it kind of made me want to do a comic. And it's been a long time since I've even really thought about that, since I was maybe a teenager, in the 90s. And so been working on that a bit, and of course working on the story for that's also suggested to me ideas. But I'm trying to focus on getting my little production list complete while working on the story, while working on practicing some comic stuff. So I've got an unending amount of things I want to do, and it all just stems from sitting down and doing something. And so most of the time when I talk to people who say they've got an art block, I say, well, what are you making? And they aren't making anything. I'm like, well, there's your problem. Make something. Doesn't even have to be worthwhile for your future or any good. You just have to do something. You don't have to show it to anybody or have it be your magnum opus. But you might find your the work you really want to do buried in that beginning step too. Yeah, forearm is very, very complex. I like to when I've taught figure drawing in the past, which was just a couple of years ago, which is the first thing I started teaching back in 2004. The way I teach it, kind of in a foundations figure drawing class, is I simplify it into flexors and extensors. There's of course more to it than that, and there's major ones to pay attention to, like the the flexor digitorum longus. It kind of forms a bump in the middle of the upper side of your forearm. Or being aware of the pisiform bone that's right there. One of your carpal bones. This kind of makes up your the bottom of your palm. Or how the bones bend inside of your arm. How they kind of rotate around each other. They call it pronation because there used to be there's a muscle there that used to call the pronator. The name got changed. I forget what it's called, but it has a kind of a more proper name now, based off what it actually does. But I think a lot of artists still call it the pronator. But all those, basically the flexors, they're kind of in the top of your arm, and they are there to extend your fingers out, and then the flexors are kind of on the bottom, and they pull all of your fingers in. It's also the pollicis muscles, and those are kind of good to know because they kind of loop this way on your wrist because they go out to your thumb. I used to have them all the muscles memorized. I would kind of like be able to tap my arm, and that would help me memorize where they're at. It's similar like with your thigh. Your thigh is very complicated. I still remember all of those muscles though. But yeah, the forearms are pretty intense. Yeah, and then for inking stuff, I've spent a lot of time looking at kind of, and I'm not perfect at it yet, like this is a bit of a mess right there, but looking at 90s kind of style inking for comics. So I've spent a lot of time looking at Richard Friend's tutorials, Jimmy Reyes, Even some David Finch, who's more of a penciler, but sometimes inks his own work. Though he doesn't, Finch doesn't use a Hunt 102 very much, if at all. Prefers fine liner markers, which I get because he works a lot with mechanical pencils, so that they work kind of the same that way. But when people like Richard Friend or Jimmy Reyes ink over his stuff, they're using a Hunt 102, which is this nib right here. And so they had a lot of good thoughts on kind of how you take advantage of the tool here. Kind of some of the marks you can make like that to kind of amplify certain effects, make it more graphic, and combine that with other tools. Well, the real trick is for memorizing those muscles is to become massive yourself, right? Hit the gym, become giant. Not like me, I guess. I definitely got an artist's build, but which I need to fix. But yeah, because they're all in kind of a very particular place and order. And they serve functions, so like and often their names are a clue as to where they are and what they do. So, if you look like at the muscle, like the brachioradialis, right? So that just means it goes from, where kind of from underneath or from behind, kind of the biceps brachii. And over the brachialis, or out from under the brachialis, and attaches to the radius, right? Or the brachialis muscle. It doesn't really, you don't really know where it's at, but it sits kind of underneath the biceps muscle, but on top of the humerus. So, but it forms a little bump on the side of your arm sometimes. Well, no, well, sort of. I have done that. I've got some really good anatomy books. Like if you really want to go like deep into anatomy, there's the Elliot Goldfinger book, which kind of sounds like a James Bond villain, but he was an anatomy teacher at the New York Academy of Art, and in his book, he basically goes like part by muscle from different body regions. And he shows kind of a photograph of that muscle being flexed. So he had a model come in who's got good muscle tone. He's pretty wiry. There's a couple of different models he uses. One of them's like he's really, really kind of wiry, and he has pictures of him flexing different muscles. And then he shows kind of all the muscles that make up that area in a drawing. And then he focuses in on the one muscle that he's trying to talk about there. And he talks, it's very deep. It's like he goes into where it inserts and attaches and its functions and all of that information. He has a book on animal anatomy too that I want to get into. I have it. I just haven't had a chance to study it like I'm looking at Terrell's work here. But and then he goes down to the bone and kind of shows the attachment points for it. And again, then there's like a discussion of its function. It's very, 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 very technical. I used to draw from it as a kind of a younger student. But I went to that school actually, so I eventually went to New York Academy of Art and took they have an intensive kind of anatomy class where we built a skeleton écorché, and then we were drawing different muscles and groups, and I would draw. So we'd have like a figure drawing model, and one of the things that I would do that was a little bit different than what other students were doing was I would draw kind of the body, but with the muscles exposed, kind of as an écorché style drawing. But I wouldn't always draw all the muscles. I would kind of focus in and draw particular things, and that kind of helped me see the structure. And then, of course, I've taught figure drawing a lot. And I have like an essentials anatomy portion of it where we talk about, specific important muscles and muscle groups. So we don't talk about all of them. Like I was saying, I tend to group the forearm muscles into those two categories. And it makes it easier to learn. And that's like a level 1 understanding of the muscle structure and the bone structure. So I give them, I think it's like 20 or 30 bones that they had to memorize for a quiz. And then I gave them a similar number for the muscles later on. And they would do drawovers over master drawings and then over their own drawings. Yeah, but the anatomy stuff for animals mostly, just from the books. Because there's not a lot of university classes. What's interesting though is like my grad school now, they have an animal drawing class where they bring live animals into the school in downtown New York. So there's like sheep and snakes and lizards and all of that in the classroom, which didn't exist when I was a student. I wish it did. It would have been a great class to take. But yeah, but just mostly from books. Again, there's just not a lot of animal drawing courses. I know, like when I taught at Ringling College of Art and Design in Florida for 4 years before coming up here, and they as part of their freshman figure drawing class during the spring, they do a big animal section. So they have like a lecture on basic animal structure from a professor or a guest that they have kind of zoom in and talk to all the freshmen. And then they spend a week or two like going out to, there's like a sort of, it's not really a zoo, it's kind of an animal, it's kind of a zoo, but it's not really a zoo. It's like very small. It's near the school, and they go there and sketch the animals. And then they also go to there's a big cat park, so like lions and tigers and pumas and big cats, leopards. And then they go out there and spend the weekends drawing those things as part of their freshman experience. And so that's kind of their main thing. They may have a separate animal drawing class, but that's kind of what most students do there as they go through that experience. And I teach a little bit in my concept drawing class I do at the university, where we have a creature drawing phase of their project, and so I'll bring in my animal drawing books, and we'll talk about some of the basic structures and how they compare to humans. So looking at the skeleton and the the overall structure. And kind of use that as a starting point for their own. Though their creatures aren't supposed to be chimeras at all, so they're not supposed to be Earth-based, really. But we talk about things that what makes why does a predator look different than a prey animal? And like one of those things is that predator eyes tend to always look forward. But here's the book I'm working from. So this is the Terryl Whitlatch book. And her most famous design is from episode 1 of Star Wars, which is Jar Jar Binks. But she's designed for all kinds of movies for decades now. And people hire her. They especially want to make very realistic creatures. Yeah, I'll run downstairs and grab those animal books real quick just to bring them up here. I'll be right back. Maybe refill this a little bit. Yeah, so I think it's good for the animal drawing practice. I think I'm going to do some expression practice. I need to. One of the things I realized I need to really improve is drawing. Well, I'm pretty good at figure drawing, but I need to improve like drawing people from my imagination, which I just haven't done all that often. I focused more on environments, but. So it's something I'm kind of actively working on. Do a fresh page here. And the iPad's over there for drawing the reference. Get it plugged in. Come on, open. I want to unlock. You've got more than one option. There we go. Okay. Thank you for the notification. Love how the you're kind of get annoyed with my devices because they're always telling me things. But yeah, here's the. Fortunately, I think the lens is like I've got it pulled back as far as it can go. But these are the books that I like. There we go. That's not too bad. This is Drawing Animals by Hugh Leidman. So there's his name down there. And this is a Dover book, so it's relatively inexpensive. And it's not so much like too much about instruction, but he talks a lot about kind of the gesture of the animals. And then he's got, you know, it's a drawing from statuary, so finding statues to draw from. So these are different statues he's drawing from stuffed animals. So going to like a natural history museum, which I guess if you're up in Boston, I'm sure they've got to probably have a pretty good one up there, I would guess, right? Because they don't move, right? So it makes it a little bit easier to practice from. So he's talking about like practice sources. You know, go to a circus. So doing gesture drawings at a circus. And then he talks about some of the structure of things, so like, simplifying creatures down to kind of pay attention to how they're built. And so he kind of works through your standard set of creatures, but looking at, overall kind of structure and gesture. But it's not really about anatomy as much. He has some of that in here, like, this skeleton versus armature type drawing. But it's more of like feeling out the the overall exposed structures. Like a cat, the skeleton is somewhat different than the final result. But but he just kind of goes through all your standard subjects doing that in here. It's a good book to look at. I copied this one too, so I have a couple other sketchbooks downstairs that are packed full of these studies I was doing. But yeah, just very simple kind of box to form and down. So that's a good one. It's relatively inexpensive. This is like $12 cover price. It's a Dover book, so it's not that expensive. So Dover prints a lot of kind of out of print stuff, and then this is Gottfried Bams. Has another book he's more well known for his human anatomy books, but this one's also a Dover book, and but he was German, so this is translated from German. But here's the armature. Paying attention to the underlying structure. I like these little puppets, little shadow puppets. He has a number of these in here as well. This one's more detailed into actual anatomy, and I'd like to do a copy of this one. He's talking about proportions here. So the general proportions of a horse. Obviously, animals, depending on the specific breed that they are, not just their species, but their breed, they'll have different builds. But, like if you look at this area here of the horse, from the shoulder to the feet, to the not the clavicle, but to the sternum, it's kind of a square built inside of that area, which is kind of helpful for making a horse kind of proportionate, right? And as opposed to a cow that's more rectangular from those same points. So from the sternum to the pelvis to the feet, it's kind of built inside of a rectangle. So it was this 3 by 2.5, basically. And they're not perfect, for every single horse or cow, but it's a good set of basic rules. Or he's looking at head size over here. So there's the length of the head, and the horse is 3 heads tall from foot to shoulder, to the top of the shoulder blade. And then he's looking, how the bones move when it runs, the angles of things. So it's, I haven't gone too deep into this book, which is it's on my list. I just kind of gradually been working through my books, but like the Terryl Whitlatch one, I've been working that one a little bit slower, but are these his drawings? But so I started that one in September. So, but other books I've kind of gone through a lot faster. So nice structural drawings of bones. So he's a really great source. This is comparative anatomy here, so showing kind of how a human in a similar pose works versus that. So you can see how the neck bends. In order for us to maintain that pose like a monkey, we have to bend our neck back a lot, where theirs is kind of more straight out. Or like over here with these other animals, you can see what's going on with their necks. And fun fact, almost all mammals, including humans and giraffes and horses and mice, we have 7 bones in our neck. So the cervical vertebrae, there are 7 of them. There's a few exceptions. I think like sloths have 9 because they pivot their heads back. But again, a really nice structural analysis of a skull. So it's again really, there's the muscles on the face. And a lot of the muscles are kind of almost the same as the human ones. There are some additional ones or missing ones. But, they try to, wherever possible, anatomists have kind of kept the same names if they're mostly in the same spot and serve the same function. So that's the Gottfried Bams book. And again, he has a human anatomy one too. But that's his animal book. And this is Joe Weatherly, so he's a bit more contemporary. He's still alive. And he was an animator, but he's got a series of books. This one I think you can get on Amazon. It was self-published. And again, it's more of a structural approach. One of the innovations that I like about his book is the way he shows the shoulder. So if you look at the shoulder girdle here, he draws it almost like it's a tombstone. And so he uses it in multiple places in here, like way down here. And so he'll like I create a form figure that I have my students draw. That's very similar to this, except for his animal ones, he changes up certain things like that shoulder girdle to turn into this tombstone shape, which is a good kind of easy adaptation from figure drawing into animal drawing. So there it is there, and up here, and then boxier pelvis. So again, it's another kind of handy resource that provides, I think, something unique. So that's why I like have the books that I reference. I like them to do not just the same thing, but do things that are distinctive from each other. So it's it doesn't contradict it. None of the books really contradict each other, but it feels like there's things that are in them that support each other. But this is the Joe Weatherly Guide to Drawing, the Weatherly Guide to Drawing Animals. So that's another good one. And then I've also got the Goldfinger book up here too. I grabbed that one while I was down there. So there's the animal. It got some ink spilled on it, so hopefully yours won't have that, and some sun exposure, so that got blown out there. There we go. Get that hardcover past. Hello, Bosch. There's a naked person there. But he's much more thorough. So he really goes into all of the muscle names and showing attachments. It's almost more scientific, but he's like showing the bending of the toe or the leg as the rear joints. So he kind of creates a general pattern. So like there's the main muscle groups on it, like the dog there, but it works for a lot of mammals. And then here's the muscles on the face. So he kind of covers it that way. I show his human anatomy one, but it's a lot of naked people in there. So I hear you can't do that online. There's no nudity online, right? Anywhere. But again, he's way more scientific. This is kind of similar to his human anatomy one, where he has like a picture. You have like a picture here or a picture over here of the muscle and information, and then you'll have it, the photograph and then the drawings kind of go down into it for his human stuff. But again, it's just he's much more thorough. There's the traps right there. Rhomboid. The human would be down in there, but again, way more thorough. It's probably more information than you need, unless you're going to be like an animal biologist. Come lay down, Bosch. Come lay down. My dog is very tired. We were hanging out with my sister's family. He has fun, but it's also a lot of work for a little dog. And it's early in the morning, and he's got a full tummy. Yeah. So again, it's different than the others, and I haven't gone through this one as much, because again, I've just been it takes a while to go through your books if you're taking it nice and slow. So there's different pigs. There's elephant. Your pachyderms. There's a squirrel, tree rat, kangaroo. So he goes through a whole bunch of animals and kind of really goes into the musculature and the skeleton and all of that stuff. Bat, dolphin. There's some skulls. Dogs. There's showing veins, because sometimes on certain dogs those really pop out. Another skull. So it's another good one. That definitely recommend. Depending on how deep you want to go into this subject, right? It's a whole giant world of information that you can definitely get lost in. And it's all good information, so. But you could probably spend a couple of years going through these books, if you're doing a really thorough approach. Let's see, where does that go? Up there. Get my brace up over here. Yeah, my table is actually at an angle, so it's not flat down like you see it. It's actually kind of up at an angle. Oh, am I getting a little jitteriness? Maybe I need to restart my computer over there today. I run the stream off of an older MacBook. Yeah, it's the Mac slowing down a little bit, and so it's going into my main desktop PC, and then it goes over to the MacBook, and then once in a while it needs a restart so it can feel good about itself. Otherwise it starts to get a little bit janky. Yeah, it's probably freezing on your side once in a while. Alright, continue. And we want, that's right, Pinterest is taking away the Facebook login, so I had to make a new one. There we go. And after a really Pinterest became a bit of a problem though, but because of all the AI nonsense. But let's see, I wanted facial expressions. There we go. But I have a whole page that's kind of all facial expressions. It's a thing I wanted to improve, so as I was looking at my skill set, I realized that was probably an area that could use some work. So I think I'm not worried about capturing their exact portraits here. In fact, let's grab a new one. I think I've drawn that page, but it looks like there's some new ones up here. Maybe you? No, they are kind of all straight on here. Yeah, so again, those are all, I have a ton of books, but those are all, I think, really good ones for kind of mastering animal anatomy. Let's see, the plane of the face on here. And one of the genres of Instagram art that it's kind of come to bother me is the pretty girl where the lights are on but no one's home illustrations. I won't name any specific artists, but you know, there's a number of them that are pretty popular. But they always strike me as like, you know, the lights are on, but nobody's home. And they look like they're supposed to be doing something intense some of the times, but they're not really emoting that that's something intense kind of situation. I don't mind that they're, you know, pretty faces or whatever, but it's, you know, there's nothing else beyond that, which you know, it's not the greatest sin in the world or anything, but it reduces its potential interest, at least to me. And then to a certain degree, it starts to look like they're making the same picture over and over again. Maybe it's just a me problem. Focus those eyes a little bit more. Oof. I know Boston's have a hard time out there, huh? I guess that's the, you know, the please the algorithm trap that anyone can kind of fall into. Yeah, fun fact, the joints between your fingers, they're evenly spaced on the bottom of your finger, but they're progressively shorter if you look at it from the top. It has to do with how the fingers fold, so it can't work otherwise, but that's some of those kind of weird proportional things. It's like if you pay attention to it, makes it easier to draw hands both from observation and from imagination. So kind of being aware that these inner spaces here should all feel like they're about the same length in perspective, but and while the outside at the top should show them getting progressively shorter. Huh. Yeah, European stuff's interesting because they have a very different approach. Well, I think a lot of like the non-US comics have a different approach. So basically, they have like a story they want to tell, and then once that story is over, they're done, right? Whereas like with us, with the United States, is with the superhero stuff is like an ongoing story that can last, like Superman's been around for 80 years or something, right? Since the 30s. And then I guess you kind of run into problems eventually where, what do you say? and what's the story you want to tell? How much can you change the characters without breaking them? Or in some cases, they do break them. This is a problem. Alright, I need to push this expression so we get back into her suspicious eyes. So that eye needs to go up. And thankfully, this lead is actually erasable. And one of the things I noticed too is I've been paying more attention to kind of how things are drawn in comics. Like I picked up the Mark Silvestri Batman and the Joker book, and he's a great, classic comics artist. But I noticed, really paid attention to kind of how he was drawing faces, and like his women all have the same face, so it's like a shorthand that he's developed. And well, that's a lot of the shorthand in American comics, right? Is they rely on the costume to really tell you who the person is. So that's straightening out more like that. Yeah, so I picked that up not too long ago. It's interesting too because he kind of changed his style up a lot. He's doing this kind of super loose cross-hatching style. Apparently he spent like 5 or 6 years developing this book for DC. They gave him basically carte blanche to do what he wants because he's anything he puts his name on is going to sell. But I think that's part of the problems, they ran into, like the early Image guys, so like Mark Silvestri and Jim Lee, when they were doing their initial Image books, Wildcats and Cyberforce and all of that, is I think they were trying to treat it more like, the comics that they came from. So they all had team books that all basically looked like X-Men wearing different suits, basically. Get the upper eyelid on there. And then there, an ongoing story that could last forever and ever, rather than trying to tell a specific story and let that kind of be its own thing. And I think I think that eventually kind of led to some of the problems that they had as a company. And you see the modern day Image, they tell more kind of individual indie type stories. Yeah, there's this whole series of books by Mobius, I think called Blueberry. I've not read them, I've seen them, but Mobius, did all these cowboy comics. Jean Giraud, or Jean Giraud, however you say his name properly in French. En français. But they're called Blueberry. I think you can get collections of them on Amazon for not too much. This lady has your basic Karen haircut. But and then I just read a series by I forget the name of the artist. It's called Precious Metal. Another one's called, I think it's Little Bird or something like that. But it's you can definitely see the influence of Mobius in the book. It's kind of a sci-fi future United States / Canada, and all right, let's see if I can push this Just kind of pushing her lip out. Her lower lip especially. While pulling back her upper lip somehow. What didn't you notice, just a sinner? Or you think the precious metal book, or? Yeah, I noticed that they're putting out a collected edition. So I tend to buy most of my comics as collected editions these days rather than individual issues, just because I kind of like to wait till it's all the way done, or that it's actually going to be good. Because it seems like often they'll start really good and then kind of putter out at some point, and you know. Yeah, the precious metal. So yeah, it's beautiful drawings in there. They kind of there's a lot of stuff going on that doesn't really make sense to me, but you know, part of what makes comics, I think, really great is well, the big thing I think is the art. Like, you know, if it was better as a written story, then we would definitely have more rock star writers. But but we definitely go to comics for its uniqueness, which is that combination of story and art, and especially the art. So I can tolerate a poorly written book as long as the art's amazing. It's you know, it's like Sean Gordon Murphy, right? So I've got his Batman White Knight collections, and he's got just amazing. His drawings and his design sense is just amazing, but I've kind of noticed that his writing is all kind of the same thing. It's like, what if it was this thing you like, but it was backwards? So it's like, in the Batman ones, it's, what if Joker went sane? Is kind of the premise of the book. Really overdrawing her face. Which is a fine idea, but the point of the book is to show Batman as the villain to a certain degree, and which I feel like has been done before, but it's just kind of this inversion, this postmodern approach. He's someone else I've noticed who kind of does a lot of same face people in his books, but his layouts and storytelling is so good as far as art, and that they're worth picking up. Like, I've got his what is it, Rockstar Jesus book, and one of the things you kind of really see right away is that, like, he hates evangelical Christians, like in that book at least. Like, he really hates them. Like, there's no empathetic no empathy put towards them at all in the books. Which, I'm not really much of a believer of any kind, but, I understand why people do, and I'm not upset about it. But he clearly was. Yeah. But I think one of the things you have to do is, like, if you're writing a story, it's really important to be able to see things from that character's real point of view, and not one that you want to put on top of them. Because people believe things that they believe for what they feel are perfectly healthy, rational reasons, and I think to not, approach your character writing that way is a bad idea. It doesn't mean they're good people or whatever, as far as your story goes, but if you don't give them kind of their due as believable characters in the context of their world, then you're kind of leaving a lot on the table. Yeah. It's like, I was raised very religiously, and but I don't really believe at all now. But I'm not like, I don't think people are stupid for not coming to my conclusions. I think that's an approach to things that doesn't build bridges with people. And so if you're just like looking to shut people down because you feel self-righteous about something, then you're not going to be very convincing. And 90% of the time, the arguments aren't worth having anyway. They're not really there to convince anybody. It's just there for people to project their own views. One way or the other. Wish I could see where her hair connects on top of her head up here. Definitely could use the ink practice for faces too, because it's a different kind of animal than drawing the animals I was drawing before. Yeah. So you have to give people their space. It's like it's actually one of the things I changed about my classroom teaching was I kind of came to the shocking realization that not everybody nerds out on the same art things that I do. Even as art students, like I think everyone should care about figure drawing or anatomy to the same degree that I do. And I was shocked to find out that not all art students do care about that particular aspect. And so one of the things that I kind of changed in my teaching was using the subject as a tool for solving design problems, which was more kind of universally interesting to students in a way that that's a clunky finger. So like when I was teaching perspective, we weren't just learning perspective, but it was part of a path to learning some composition and solving a specific kind of design problem that made it more compelling because they were using it for something. Like I can sit and nerd about animal drawing or figure drawing or whatever as a separate subject all day long, but most people, most of the time, they want to know how they can use that information for things that they want to do. Well, I just enjoy the thing for itself. And yeah, like I said, it's like it's like I think it's not. I've found it's just not a point worth arguing with people. I have found run into people that want to argue with me, but it's think you get along with people a lot better if you focus on your shared interests, and let the other one slide, as long as no one's trying to force you to do anything. That's where you might run into trouble with me, is when people are trying to tell other people how to live their lives through the means of law. But other than that, being chill with people is probably a better idea than imposing your heaven on them, which could be their hell. But so I changed a lot of how I handled my assignments, so we weren't just learning, how to do a specific thing with like human anatomy as an example, or perspective, or these other subjects, but rather it was part of a larger process to help them solve their design problems. And I found I got much better student work out of the students, and they were really excited about the projects we were working on and all of that. So which I was excited to see too, because I'd much rather students get what they need that helps them move forward. Like, one of the things I did is one of the projects I have them do, which I need to finish and put up on my teaching site. So I've got the first phase of it up there, but basically they would draw an isometric environment, and then like, there's a 90s technique, right? The flick and throw to get those long, narrow lines. Kind of converging. I don't know how it works in that situation, but fill this in with black anyway. But then they take that environment that they've drawn. It's three buildings kind of in a little inside corner with a courtyard on the inside. And they take that and they put themselves, there's a technique I give them for kind of imagining themselves inside that space. And then they have to draw it using different perspective types as different kinds of lenses. And can draw sticks and stones, stick figures. But again, it gave them like a real problem to solve that was relevant to them. So my students, a lot of them are motion designers, which is a kind of animation, and then a lot, some of them are theme park designers, entertainment designers, and then others were virtual reality students. So kind of understanding the viewers, getting all inky on my finger. Understanding the viewer's perspective is really, really important to them, and kind of being able to, create this interesting scene that's relevant to a lot of their interests, and then learning to draw it from different points of view was just like a really great skill set for them to have, and it made them more relevant as they went from their freshman year. These were freshman classes into their upper level classes in their major, being able to more effectively work from their imagination. So that's the it was kind of a big change that I made in my teaching style. Yeah, if you haven't been over there, though, check out my teaching site. It's myartprofessor.com. Kind of neglected it the last few years, but I'm back on it now that I've completed the project that caused the neglect. Which was my fault, but so So I was doing a camper conversion of my Nissan Xterra, and it's now effectively done. I broke something on it I need to fix, but other than that, it's the camper's done. The diesel heater is not working properly, and I need to figure out why. Some kind of electrical issue, which means, you know, that falls outside of my better expertise, but it's something that I can figure out, just to take some time. I'll cover that up anyway. But so I'm back, but basically because it's done, I now have, like, you know, freed up brain space, because I was doing all of everything for it. So all of the electrical, you know, all the woodwork, most of the engine work, up until last fall, and then I had a major engine catastrophe and had to get a new engine, which I think I could have done, but is that about street art and taggers? Which I could have done, but I didn't have, you know, the equipment for it. I need to, like, get a big, you know, pulley thing and be able to lower it in and all of that. That's right, I got my little mirror up here so I can make faces at it. I get the features in place. Good evening. Good morning. Good morning, Vietnam. Yeah, so I'm back working on that teaching site. So I've been going through and making sure things aren't broken on there. And I think everything's okay, and I had to go through, I'm kind of going through all the stuff I've neglected the last few years related to that. You're having dinner? Well, don't chew while typing, right? Don't be rude. I'll just say I've been kind of back working on my teaching site, and in the mornings, now that my Xterra camper is effectively complete. Though I was gone all of October out painting. So I was took it out, you know, for its purpose, its intended purpose, out painting and camping in the woods. Which was great. Yeah, it's so nice being able just to pull up on a campsite and oh, thank you for the lemon. I haven't been on. I found out I can multi-stream through OBS now, and which I guess you couldn't used to do. And so I kind of paused on that because I had like a service I was using that was free, but I didn't want to pay for being able to the monthly fee for streaming through different things, and so I cut it down to the 2 that it would let me do for free, and so DLive got cut off of that. But now you can put whatever you want into OBS and it will stream whatever. So as long as you got a good enough internet connection. So what are we doing for hair on here? Cut back on that. I'm trying to draw more this one more out of my own head, and I've got I can look at my own face for the distortions. I've got a little mirror up there, a little makeup mirror. Yeah, so I went through and has been updated a bunch of stuff this week when I saw that. Turn the DLive thing back on. I have Kick on there too, as well as YouTube, Twitch, DLive, obviously, Instagram, of course, it's up over here on my phone. So you'll see people write stuff into the chat once in a while from there. I found this like free multi-client chat thing that just basically puts up the URL or whatever from there. That brush down. Don't need to hold it in my hand, right? So yeah, I went through and kind of re-enabled a bunch of that stuff to make it work. But I haven't looked at some of these platforms in a long time, so I didn't realize I had like 70 followers over on DLive. I wonder how many of them are still around, because that was on for, it was pretty popular for a while, and then it kind of faded off, I think, compared to other ones. Let's see. Starting to work a little better. Yes, sir. What's the question here? Need some advice. First off, advice is always singular, right? Yep, doodling and practicing. We're just, if you scroll back, I was drawing some animals. Derek Carr. Your girlfriend doesn't want to get married. Well, this means you can have more than one, right? I don't know. Depends on, what she, it's kind of a mutual thing, right? So it depends on what she wants and what you want and what you're willing to not have or have, and that compromise. Like if you're looking to start a family and all that, that's an important difference. And depending on, what your, the relationship goals are, if that communicates a lot from her. What does the grid pad serve? What do you mean? I'm not sure about that question there. The grid, oh, this right here? It's a cutting board, basically. And for one, it actually helps me kind of avoid distortion with the camera that's over my desk. And so if you're looking to like start a family, have kids and the whole thing, then that kind of tells you that maybe she's not into that. And usually when people tell you that kind of thing, it's worth believing. But yeah, I like this pad because it softens. I've actually got metal on my desk, so I've got it's a big drafting table. Like it's 6 feet long, almost 2 meters. Yeah, so it might be worth finding somebody else, right? Because if that's not what she wants, and that's what you want, then that's the shakes. I've met people who thought they could change their spouse or their partner's mind, and you can't always, and sometimes if you do, they don't like that actually, so that they might agree to it, but they don't really want it, and so they resent it. And as the saying goes, there's a lot of fish in the sea, so there's probably a nice girl that wants to settle down out there into a family. Yeah, so the grid's helpful for that. It's also soft, so if I want to do paper directly, like a sheet of paper on top of the desk, it's better to have like that softer surface under there than just the straight metal. But it also has angles on it that are useful for perspective drawing. So that's why I like this pad. It's for cutting, so it has like standard angles, but the angles also happen to be the same ones you want for technical perspective. Well, no, that's perfectly a valid reason. If she doesn't want to have the kind of relationship you want to have, that's about as valid as it gets. I have 2 of her books. I need to pick up the 3rd one. She's apparently writing another one. I met her and the co-author for it at Lightbox a few weeks ago. Which reminds me, I need to write him an email today before I forget. Michael Habib. Dr. Habib. But hey, you're welcome to share. I haven't really been posting them as posts. Sometimes as like stories, the studies. I tend to focus more on the actual kind of creative work rather than the study work on the Instagram page. So I haven't really taken pictures of them in the same sense. Well, yeah, I get fixated here in the studio. And I already have a lot of nieces and nephews. Like, I was hanging out with my sister and her family last night. She's got 4 little girls. Really? Bosch is great. He's very conversational. I'm sure he would not appreciate your opinion of him being not very interesting to hang out with. He is very interesting, according to him. But I get caught up in my studio like all the time. Like it's just obsessive for me. Oh yeah, maybe I'll meet someone nice, right? Yes, I have a bachelor in illustration, bachelor BFA in illustration, and then I also have a master's degree in painting from the New York Academy of Art. Is formal training a must? I think depends on what you mean. Like, you need training. I think there's several things you need. One is in fine art or art in general, you don't necessarily need a degree. Like all of the freelance and gallery work I've done, none of them have ever asked me for a degree. Universities do. And they have reasons for doing that. Maintaining their own superiority, I guess. Why does it make it mark? Come on. There we go. Trying to draw too fast with this pen. There we go. So I wanted that outward curve. But so formal training can help. So one of the things it does is it gives you a place to work, and it gives you deadlines, and it gives you a community of other artists that are around you. It gives you a specific support network of teachers. So I would definitely be choosy if you're going into formal education. But the main things you need is, one, you need really good information in a good sequence. So there's not just one sequence that's always appropriate, but but you need a sequence of some kind. So you learn this, and then you learn this other thing, and then you learn another thing, and so on, in a certain order that makes sense. So that's really, really important. And so you're not just learning random things. Otherwise, there's so much. One of the problems, like I talk to other professors about, is that students are swimming in a sea of information, right? There's just so much you can learn from so many places. It's hard to know kind of what to focus on and what to start on. And sometimes people disagree over what fundamentals are important. And that can make a big difference. But a sequence is really, really important. So good information in a good sequence. And then I do think you do need a mentor of some kind. So that doesn't necessarily mean you need one all the time, but you do need one at least. Multiple would be great. Different kinds of people telling you different things, so you can get more range in your feedback. But I think you definitely want good information in a sequence. I think a community is really important too. You can get some of that online, but there's a big difference between having that in-person experience with other students, really bringing your work in and putting it in front of people where people can physically see it. It changes how you see your work, and that makes it makes a big difference, because when you put your work in front of other people that way, you can see the problems with it, and differently than you do if you're just kind of all by yourself or just talking to a small number of people online. and it's hard to get that outside of like a university or a physical location. So doing like live workshops where you're in the studio of somebody or a special location where people are doing workshops, like putting it physically in front of people, not just online, but physically, can make a big difference for how you see your work. So I will see people, complain online, professionals, especially professionals selling courses, they'll talk about the problems with universities, and there's definitely problems. Like the private schools are really, really expensive. I've taught at a couple of the bigger schools, I've had offers at other ones too. Like I've taught at Ringling, and if you do an illustration degree at Ringling or any degree, you're going to walk away with, it costs about $500,000 to get your degree there, if not a little bit more, which I think is too expensive. Just there's ways of making it cheaper, but they keep making it more expensive. A lot of that comes from more like growth in administration, which is where a lot of the expense goes. Because administrators on average, they tend to be more expensive than professors in terms of pay and compensation. It's like the money that's being paid in tuition isn't necessarily going into the classroom directly. It's covered in like your counselors and your admissions officers and all these other kind of secondary attributes. And but I will say, Ringling, they've got really amazing teachers there. Like there's George Pratt and John Foster, very well regarded illustrators, and all the other teachers there. There's tons of just amazing people teaching there. But I still think it's too expensive for the degree you're getting. And then taught at SCAD, and they're similarly expensive. They do offer more scholarships, but they also take everyone, so there's no limits on who they take, which means everybody gets in, which lowers the average quality of the students down significantly. So I appreciate that. Haven't gotten a badge in a long time on Instagram. I do actually. I have literally studied like from ye old masters directly in person. So my grad school, we had a master copy program as part of one of the classes you could take, and so we went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art and copied paintings there. So I spent a lot of time looking at the Rembrandts. So I did 2 Rembrandt portraits. The first one is kind of a mess. I was trying to kind of paint it in a style similar to one of my teachers, Stephen Assail. And then, but the second one came out so much better. I was being more careful with it and kind of understood the technique a lot better. It is very distracting to work in the museum, though. I also did a Peter de Hooch study as well there. And the Manet, which I didn't like as much. I did it at the suggestion of a teacher, and I didn't really get that much out of it. And then I've also done a copy it's called the Hispanic Society, which is another museum in New York. It's a guy who really liked Spanish stuff. He wasn't Spanish himself, but he liked the whole culture thing, and so he made a museum that collects stuff from Spain mostly. They had like a couple of Velázquez paintings in there, so I studied one of those, did a painting of that. So, definitely recommend studying masters. I've done drawings in museums. You know, you don't need special permission to do that. You just go, as long as you know they let you bring pencils or pens or whatever the rules are for the museum. Because there's something about being there in front of the real painting and not just a photograph that makes a difference. Though I have drawn from photographs too. And part of my morning study is a master study, right? So I'm sketching from Terryl Whitlatch's Science of Creature Design. And she's definitely a master of the craft. And so I definitely highly recommend studying masters as a study technique. I still do it today. And I think it's one of the fastest ways to level up your art skills is to study masterworks. And you know, for people in general, I just recommend you study the things that you like, because your taste will change. Like you'll appreciate some things at one time and other things at another time, or you'll grow out of things. But there's reasons why you respond to things, why you like what you like, and I think it's definitely, you know, worth paying attention to those things. Well, that'll pay my electric bill, right? I'm not sure what the badges cost on Instagram. I don't think they're that much, but it's nice getting them. I appreciate it. Maybe I'll tell Instagram to show my post to my followers. I've kind of worked out a little process now that will let me post more often. I've ever since Instagram announced that they were feeding their everything going on their site into their AI systems. It's just been haven't really wanted to post. But I have Nightshade installed on my computer, and I think Blazes too, but I mostly just focus on Nightshade, which is a program that kind of poisons the data sets. So it puts something into the image that gives the AI systems bad information about your work. And so it's kind of a proactive anti-AI system. So Glaze protects it from being trained, but what Nightshade does is it does train, but it trains the wrong thing. So it kind of messes with their system. Well, I think it's necessary to study from the life model. So I would definitely, if you have the opportunity, get in front of a real person. I generally think, you know, the nude figure is a good place to study. One of the things you'll find, like in a figure drawing class, like the ones I've taught, is most of the time, most of the art models are not in great shape. And so it's not kind of this weird situation that some people think it is. Though, like model packs that you'll find online, they tend to be more, say, more attractive people. You know, more people that are more in shape. And I think it can be helpful. In general, I prefer studying from, you know, the real thing if I can, you know, as much as possible. But kind of sleepy. It's only like 8:30, but I guess you work long hours, right? It's just nighttime there, so. Have a good night. Thank you for the badge. I appreciate it. No, you know, builds character, right? Yeah, but if your girlfriend, doesn't want to have that kind of relationship, then she's probably not the one for you. So I would, you know, maybe let her know you can't date exclusively anymore. Still see her, but it's time to maybe see other people more often. That might scare her, right? Into maybe wanting to stay with you more. But either way, you'll know. Do you draw from memory or reference is the question. Well, the answer is yes. So I like to draw from imagination. So like right now, this face I'm drawing right here, I'm not looking at anything. I'm just sketching it. So I like to do both because I think they feed each other. So like my knowledge of anatomy and proportions and structure help kind of feed this drawing, and then also my experiences drawing it from life kind of feed into it as well. And they kind of go back and forth, and then when I'm drawing from the model, I'm really paying attention to things that maybe I don't, when I'm drawing, I realize, hey, I don't understand something that well. And so when I'm drawing from the life model or from reference, I'll spot things in there that that I realize I need to pay attention to. So when I come back to drawing from my imagination, I can better use that information for myself. And so that's really what it's for, is finding real use in the information you're trying to master. So you definitely want both, and that'll make a big difference for your it'll improve your abilities and make you pay attention to things. Because what kind of comes out when you're drawing from your imagination is your natural style to a certain degree, and then what observation tends to be kind of more explicit. Anatomy, composition, and lighting courses. I need to finish mine. I do have a figure drawing course that I made for my students that I need to kind of complete, and then there's some things I actually want to change to make it work better for kind of independent study online. I need to move this nose over. But in terms of online courses, I know a former student of mine has a course on proco.com now, so that's Josh Black. And he's got a course on there for figure drawing. It's really structure based, from what I can tell. But he was someone that took my figure drawing class, like 20 years ago. So I'd be curious just to see what he does that's different. But you can look him up. It's just Josh Black. I don't know what the exact handle is, but you can find him on Instagram. He puts up figure drawing sketches all the time. They're very gestural and very structurally based. Let's look upside down. Make sure things aren't too far off. Sometimes it helps me see the structure and proportions better when I turn it upside down like that. But I should finish mine. I'm kind of back working on my teaching site, and so I've got one kind of course I just need to finish. I might finish some of it here online, because it's just drawing the scene from different points of view, and that way I can kind of record it and here, and then put the time lapse of it up on the teaching site. I live in Richmond, Virginia, in the United States. And I teach at Virginia Commonwealth University. So, that's where I am located. And move the center line of that forehead over, just so I understand it better. Move the middle lobe of that lip over, and now it pushes the lips out that way. So, yeah, so that's where I live and work. I have in the past, I haven't recently. I'd like to get back to it, working with galleries. And, but I tend to prefer oil painting. So, if you go to the petersakovich.com, so my full name, there's also an Instagram for that too, that's separate from this one. You'll see more of what I do for like painting. Like I put up a bunch of gouache paintings I did out. Yeah, Proco, they do have a lot of free stuff on YouTube as well that you can watch. There's a lot of really good stuff in there, even in the free stuff, not just in the paid materials. Most every day. Yeah, I try to get up in the morning and do these morning studies. I hadn't done the morning studies online in a while, and then I thought about it, thinking, yeah, I should start doing those here in the morning, doing my little practices, warm-ups, which I need to probably stop soon. Probably stop once I finish this head. I'll probably call it a morning. And then I've been coming on in the evening as well. Sometimes during the day, but usually in the morning here and in the evening. I've got it all kind of set up, so it doesn't take a lot of effort for me to, get to work with it online. I don't mind. I don't mind talking while working, because again, I've been teaching for a very, very long time, and so I'm kind of used to talking and drawing at the same time. It definitely slows me down, I think, a little bit, but I don't mind the chitter chatter. on the online. And I'm broadcasting over on Twitch and YouTube and D Live, and I guess I got Kick as well. I don't really have much activities over on Kick though. It seems like that's all like gaming, gambling. Yeah, I've done concept art for games mostly. So not really movies as much, but definitely for games. I haven't done any that much recently. It's been a couple years, but yeah, I worked with Disney. I've worked with Riot a little bit a long time ago. A lot of smaller kind of projects for smaller studios. So, but yeah, for sure. I've talked to a bunch of people. There just seem to be like a lot of people having a hard time finding work at the moment. Maybe related to AI, but I think it has more to do with economy, and then the fact that a lot of major games and movies have not done very well with customers. And so it definitely generated a lot of problems for a lot of people. Fun to design some blown out hair here. Yeah, looking at maybe doing some color stuff later on today, but this is my morning study warm-up, so that's what we're focused on here. Alright, let's see if we can do an okay job inking this, right? Start with the eyes. Since that's going to be the hardest part. I introduced my nieces to Totoro last night. I've been trying to get them to watch it for a while, and And they liked it, of course. Everybody loves the Totoro, right? So I need to move this brace out of the way so I can rotate the paper more easily. Support here is kind of it's to keep the pad in place because the table's up at an angle, so it means I don't have to hold the book while I'm drawing. Well, you know, it's it's Instagram, right? So people don't really watch a lot of live streams on Instagram, as far as I can tell. But maybe I need to work on being more funny or something. I think most of the jokes I tell my students only makes them feel like they want to die. So I'm going to move this out of the way so I can rotate this page. There you go. Put this out of the way so I'm not on that side of the paper anyway. There we go, that's much easier. All right, well, have a good time. Have a good evening. I think my other pages are like a little bit slow due to... It seems like it's okay right now. Yeah, it's not jumping around. I still think I need to restart my MacBook though. I haven't got any bad internet notifications on my side here though, so. When inking, it's important to be able to rotate your paper to take advantage of your natural flow. And so it takes some practice to kind of figure that out, but like usually it's easier to pull down because you can use gravity. Especially for longer lines. If I want to pull this one down. Just careful I don't trip over the paper. Good evening. Yeah, I think I'm going to finish inking this one up and then we're going to call it a good practice day. I need to exercise. I ate a little too well yesterday for my own health due to Thanksgiving. And then get on to today's professional activities, right? Good evening. Or good morning, I guess. I keep track of my own day, right? Well, that's good to know, right? Seems like everybody's doing just fine today. Getting into some winter weather. It's cooling off outside here a lot this week. Gonna get some winter cold finally. Just in time, right? Good evening, or good morning. Used to coming on in the evening, so. But it's still, it just turned 9 a.m., so I've been at this for a couple hours. Hello. There's the dog. Zonked out over on his other bed. Yeah, happy Black Friday, everybody. Alright, I think we're going to call it there. Let's see, today is the 29th, right? So, 24, 1, 1, 2, 9. Guess we're going to list as pin ref. I like to make sure I write down kind of what I do, because I do so much drawing and all that that I sometimes forget when things have happened, and that can actually be really vital information sometimes. And but yeah, appreciate everybody that came in. Hope you have a good day, and I'll probably be back on during my evening sometime.